Welcome to video 27 in the Calmness Mind course with me, John Glanville. I've called this video Letting Go of Your Demons. And what I mean by that is anything that is making you do things that are not good for your optimum well-being. I guess from my perspective, I see anxiety, OCD, depression, worry, some belief systems, and control as forms of an addiction. And as I've said many times, my definition of an addiction is something that you can't consciously stop. If you were consciously in control, you'd say stop, and they would, but they don't. Therefore, it's been driven from your unconscious mind's programming or some other inner energy influencing you to act in a certain way, or some external person, your family or your peer group, or maybe a combination of them all. Let me try and give you an example. Before my partner quit the corporate world to become an artist, to follow her authentic dream, as I'm doing, it took her 6 months to hand in a notice, because each time she consciously tried to quit, her unconscious would override that desire and sabotage her through the use of stories based on beliefs such as she might fail as an artist or would be foolish to leave a well-paid job, just to chase a dream. Turns out it was one of the best things she ever did. I mean, funny really is if you really think about it, how could her unconscious mind know if it would work or not until she tried? But this is just what the mind does. And there's another interesting thing as well. The company she worked for was a technology company that developed intelligent digital marketing screens and billboards, okay, that consciously but also subliminally influence human behavior for retail outlets, call centers, transport systems, and airports. They called this process buy-in decision motivation at point of purchase. A camera would apply face and body recognition algorithms to the person who was walking past, okay, which would either identify the actual person or it would categorize them by age, gender, clothing styles, and things like that. And then it would serve to the screen, to the digital billboard, a tailored advertising message specific to that person. Now, that was 6 years ago, which in technology terms is a really long time. And I remember when I first saw it in action, it reminded me of the film Minority Report. It was very impressive, but also it felt a little sinister too. So why am I telling you all this? It's because we have been bombarded, right, with messages from our parents, from school, the state, and religion all our lives. And this bombardment is increasing dramatically in the last few years, okay? We have been programmed and are being unconsciously run from the programs that we've been programmed with. And we can't consciously stop them because they're part of our unconscious psyche. Or perhaps we've even integrated those programs unknowingly into our belief systems. Like a person saying, well, I mustn't let them down, or it's best to follow rules, or governments wouldn't lie to us. The degree to which the science of behavioral marketing has learned to manipulate and influence humans, whilst the human thinks it's not being influenced, it's incredible. It's why corporations spend hundreds of millions of pounds on advertising and hiring behavioral scientists and psychologists each year, because it works. Therefore, if it works for them to influence our unconscious minds, then it stands to reason that it will work for us to consciously retrain our unconscious minds as well. Can we use the same techniques they use on us, on ourselves? And perhaps even protect ourselves from further conditioning as well. That way, we can undo any programming that's not serving us, and we can install new programs that will serve us, assuming that calmness is one of our goals. Think about this, one really simple question. Who is responsible for your emotions? Perhaps even pause the video to have a think about it. Who is controlling your emotions? Now, obviously, the answer is you. But I think that people forget. They forget that, right? Or were never trained on how to do it. Or something within them is unconsciously sabotaging their own calmness. Lots of people have been asking me recently, how can I be calm and happy with all the changes going on in the world? And my answer is simple. These days, I like change. I don't mind it. I'm not clinging on to keeping things the same. I like adapting. I see opportunity in change, a chance to grow. And I've tried to create a life for myself that is less and less dependent on what I'm being told to do and more in line with what I want to do and what is best for my health and I guess for my happiness as well. But back when I had my anxiety, I hated change. I wanted to control everything. I wanted to follow rules. And I guess looking back on it was probably why I had anxiety in the first place. So we're talking about letting go of our demons. And in my mind, I use the word demons very playfully, like, oh, my inner demons got the better of me and I eat all the cookies. You really need to think about this. Something inside of me that doesn't feel like me made me do something that I didn't consciously want to do. I ate all the cookies. Maybe I said yes when I meant no. Maybe I acquiesced to something that I didn't believe in. Now this is really powerful stuff, and it's called mind control. It's how brainwashing works. People say, how could they have done that thing? Well, I don't think they consciously chose to do it. Their inner demon influenced them into doing it. This is how powerful this programming is. But I think you have to wake up to the fact that these programs, these belief systems, these group identifications, and these energies, they really are driving the show. And if you can't consciously stop something as simple as eating a cookie or washing your hands, then what more unfavourable to you things can your little demons influence you into doing? Now, as I put these videos together, I usually run them past a few friends to ask for feedback before I go live. And a couple of people have said to me, you can't use that word demons. Yeah? And that one word, that really triggered them, which was interesting to me, because when I see a big response like that, it means that some sort of energetic trigger has occurred. So I'm going to use the word demons, but I'm going to use it generically to label any thoughts or feelings that kick off the unconscious mind or kick off an unconscious program, an energetic reaction that you don't consciously want within you. As I said earlier, a demon can be an addiction. It can be the feeling that you are responsible for everything. It could be a past trauma that's being held down but still influencing your behaviours. I'll give you an example. Like a victim of abuse in the past, not enjoying intimacy in the now. We might call that their demons. Our little 8-year-old, our ego, perhaps we can call him, a little demon inside us. And then there are all the great religions of the world that all talk about demons. The Bible talks about unclean spirits that need to be driven out. In Arabic and Islamic theology, there's the jinn or the genie, which may be benevolent or malevolent, working for you or against you. I guess if you believe in angels, formless energetic entities that can influence you, then you ought to believe in demons, formless energetic entities that can influence you. I don't know how this stuff works, but I do know, that everything is made up of energy. And that energy is mostly invisible. It needs a fuel source. It seems to be formless, but can influence our form. Or, for example, a thought can influence the feelings in your body. Like when you put two magnets together under some paper with some iron filings, you can see where all the energy goes. And if there's no paper, if you just hold the two magnets, you can feel where the energy goes through the attraction and the repulsion of the forces. It's invisible, but forces are in action. And just because your 5 senses aren't capable of registering them, it doesn't mean that they're not there or they're not affecting you in some way. Some birds can sense the magnetic resonance of the earth and they use it to navigate. Well, personally, I normally know which way north is, and my directional skills are really good. Perhaps I also have this capacity within me, but I was never taught to develop it. Or perhaps it was developed a little bit from being a rep on the road, driving thousands of miles each year before we had sat-nav systems. I don't know. People talk about our etheric body, energy meridians, chakras, karma, the pain body, auras, and things like that. Maybe we need to sensibly explore to see if these things are real and what influences they might have on our body. As I said in earlier videos, if we are a soul, a formless, energetic entity inhabiting a physical body, surely we'll have other senses too, belonging to the soul, as well as the main five senses of the body. Let me give you an example. The first time I had an out-of-body experience during deep, deep meditation, I could still see and hear, even though I was up in space looking down at my body over there. If you place two magnets together, okay, their charges interact with each other. If you put two people together, maybe their charges are interacting as well. Maybe their little demons are unconsciously jabbing ours, or our little demons are jabbing theirs. Okay. And those who have a high frequency, low density energy field, because they've been able to discharge their emotional energy batteries, will often calm and inspire people around them, whilst those with low frequency, high density fields may agitate and try to pull energy from those around them. And all this happens under the radar of the conscious mind, and for most people outside of their conscious ability to sense it. When I was young, I used to race go-karts, and I was always building engines, maintaining and repairing and fixing things, okay? And quite by chance, I discovered that if I was trying to put a bolt into a hole that was really awkward or fiddly, or it was out of sight and I couldn't see where it was going, the harder I tried and the more I stressed, the less I could get it installed, okay? But if I calmed myself down, if I took a breath, okay, and then I could just sort of feel what was going on, I could sense a tiny, tiny little energetic pull that seemed to pull things together. I didn't know what it was back then, but I just, that's useful, and I just started using it. And to this day, if I'm working on something where I can't see what I'm doing, I always just close my eyes and I calmly let my fingers feel what they need to do. There seems to be some energetic intelligence in there. If I lose something, I just stand still, I close my eyes, and I start thinking about what I'm looking for. And in 75% of the times, my body just subtly takes me towards it, or an awareness comes into my mind of where that thing is. 20 years ago, I was so close to ideas like this. As an engineer, I wanted to see the truth, I wanted the proof, I wanted the science. I guess perhaps you could say one of my inner demons was my sabotaging my growth with my inner demon of logic and reason based upon my belief systems of that time. And although I'm still logical and rational, these days I'm also intuitive, I'm open, I'm adaptable, I'm influential, and I'm open to trying new things. And I found that every serious person on a path of intense self-growth wakes up one day and says, oh my God, this is all about energy. Yeah? One of my favorite teachers, Dr. David R. Hawkins, who wrote the book Power versus Force, which is pivotal in my recovery to calmness, talks about something called attractor fields, which are non-physical energy fields generated by the thoughts and the attitudes of a person or a city or a country or a group. Okay? And these energy fields can be high frequency and life affirming, meaning good for you, or they can be low frequency and life diminishing, which are obviously bad for you. One makes your biology go strong and the other weakens it. And these energy fields not only interact with and affect your body, but also with the body of others around you too. Happy people seem to spread happiness, and gloomy people seem to spread gloom. Okay? So every thought you have is either life supporting or life impairing. Whether you say to yourself, I love you, or I hate you, really matters. It matters to you, to your body, and those who are hanging out in your energy field. And all this is happening beyond your five senses, and hidden deeply behind logic and reason. Let me try and give you another example. There doesn't need to be any logical reason behind being loving when loving is high energy, which is both good for you and the other person. But the low energy demons of the mind say, well, I won't be nice to her if she won't be nice to me. Logic and reason, they seem to get in the way of a happy life. I believe logic and reason are tools our demons use that seem to get in the way of recovery from anxiety and depression. Therefore, we need to get behind logic and behind reason, because that's where love is, that's where kindness is, that's where connection and intimacy reside. Equally, we must remove ourselves from low energy sources of attractor fields, things like soap operas, violent films, dysfunctional families, violent computer games, abusive relationships, arguments, complaining, mainstream media, news bulletins, and begin to align ourselves with nature, health, exercise, creativity, community, and high-functioning relationships. And as you know, I like to build simple models that we can use to improve our mind and body connections, and therefore to be able to influence our emotional well-being. And regardless of their perceived scientific truth, can they make us feel better and free us from our own demons? Can we become the sum of our parts rather than being run by some of our parts, like the judge, the victim, the pleaser, our little 8-year-old or some other little demon within inside us? You know the story. So let me remind you some of the basics once more. Do you want to be right, or do you want to be happy? And if you say, well, I want to be right, then I suggest you just switch off this video now, because it's not for you. But if you say happy, I would say, can we perhaps change that word to become calm? Can I become calm? Can calmness become my default setting? Can my goal in life be to be calm, to the best of my ability, regardless of what is going on within me or around me? Because it's bloody hard to be happy all the time. It takes lots of energy, activity, work, food, sex, drink, drugs. It can be exhausting if you chase it, and it can be demoralizing if you can't achieve it. However, if we're looking to be calm, stoic, relaxed, easygoing, peaceful, in equilibrium, in balance, cool-headed, present, connected. These are really interesting words, okay, and interesting emotions. And they are all ones that don't use much energy and don't leak energy. They conserve energy. It takes almost no energy to accept or to be lovingly detached. Now, I can see why that might upset you. That must be hard for you. Okay. From calmness, it's easy to use a little energy to move up to happiness for a while, and then return back to a more natural state of stillness and recharging your body. I often hear people talk about their fight with anxiety. But I think calmness is, from the observer's perspective, a decision to dance lovingly with your thoughts, your biology, your chemistry, and your beliefs, and the events of the external world in a most favourable way for your own emotional and physical well-being. Right from the start of this course, I've been saying that your brain and the cells in your body live in darkness, awaiting responses from your senses to tell them what to do. Okay? If the actions of the body are still and the mind is quiet, they will assume that nothing's happening. Therefore, you will feel calm and fine. And if the body is shaking around and the mind is racing and you're all freaking out, okay, then the cells assume bad things are out there, so it prepares you for the attack of some sort, which keeps you in a hypersensitive state. This is just how thoughts, biology, and chemistry work. So, if you have anxiety, you have unknowingly conditioned your cells to become hypervigilant, fatigued, and configured to have more receptors aligned with fear responses, as we talked about in video number 7. So what I'd like to do is compare how an anxiety-conditioned person reacts in an emergency versus how a calm person might react, so you can get some sort of comparison and some sort of idea of the difference between the two. I'm being generic here, but I'm doing my best, okay? The anxious person would unconsciously jump to the fight, flight or freeze response in some manner. Blood would be pulled back from the thinking prefrontal cortex, okay? And then the brain's old baseline reptilian brain would kick in with instinctual responses. You could say that the decision about what action to take in that moment would be made unconsciously by the reptilian brain and then analysed later by the prefrontal cortex when it came back online, although by then it was too late to do anything about it. But in a calm person, okay, the prefrontal cortex stays on. So he or she can think clearly and consciously and choose to the best of their ability which action to take in that moment. Now that one difference can change a person's life. You know, how they handle job interviews, dating, standing up for themselves, doing extreme things like starting companies, traveling, starting or ending relationships. This is the big stuff that needs to happen that makes life exceptional. Now the second thing is a little bit hard to explain, okay, unless you've experienced it. Time seems to speed up if you're anxious and slows down if you're calm. The anxious person says, oh, it all just happened so quickly, there was nothing I could do. Whereas the calm person says, I had just enough time to glance left and I saw that there was an exit, so I just dived down there. Yeah? I suppose another way of looking at it is if your energy is spraying out everywhere, you know, like at a party, if you're singing, dancing, and having fun, time flies by. But if you're not dissipating that energy, if you're just sat waiting for a train, your phone battery's dead, time seems to slow down. So I can't scientifically explain how it works, but I think that energy, time, your emotional state, and which brainwaves your brain is in are deeply entwined. And I'm hoping to make a video about this quite soon in the future. Now the next comparison looks at what happens once the anxious person has been triggered. Did they get angry? Did they get anxious? Did they start crying? Did they do a whole lot of drama? Did they try to control the other person? Did they run away? What were the effects of the anxious person's behavior on those around them? Because anger kicks off more anger. Fear kicks off more fear. One person screaming may set off another person's cells to perceive danger and fire them off as well. Whereas a calm person tends to keep others calm. They can offer comfort. They can support people. They can de-escalate anger or fear. I recently saw a video clip of a very scared policeman in Australia with a rubber bullet gun, okay, performing crowd control. Okay? And one of the protesters just calmly stood there, okay, didn't say anything. He didn't react in any way. Okay? And it really flummoxed the policeman. He was screaming and shouting, and the man just calmly stood still, just stood his ground, didn't respond at all. And eventually the policeman calmed down and moved away. And I think if the protester had got all angry, I'm sure the policeman would have unconsciously felt authorised to justify a more violent act. I guess it was the same with Gandhi and others who have performed non-violent protests. The power of calmness is of a such higher magnitude than that of fear. Their energy, the calm energy field, trumps and influences the other person's energy field. However, to be that person who stays calm, it doesn't mean that they're not afraid. They've just trained themselves to be calm, to trick their bodies into calmness as they surrender to that moment, which gives them the greatest range of responses in that moment, which I think is very sensible for our survival. Okay, I do many things that scare me, and in those moments when the world out there is going crazy, in my head, I'm saying, everything's fine, all is good, I surrender to this moment, I accept, I accept, I accept. What action should I take now? To be calm means you keep your faculties about you so that you can make decisions, so you can influence others. And if we take it to its extreme, should that be the moment you die or get hurt, die calmly. Don't go out kicking and screaming like a baby. Start the next leg of your journey calmly and with optimism, maybe even intrigue. You're going to die someday. You're going to lose everything one day. Okay, you came in with nothing. You're going to go with nothing. It's what you do in the middle that counts. Who you become. Last week I was having lunch with some friends, and when I returned to my car, there was a big scrape at the back where somebody had driven into it while they were parking. And there was a tiny emotional response within me. I let it out. You know, I said out the stories in my mind that was offering about what happened there, and I just let that little energy flow out of me. And I said, never mind. Okay. And my friend said, if that was my car, I'd be really angry. I'd be angry all week, and then it would annoy me until all that scratch had been taken out. Okay. And I could see his point of view, you know. But he thought I was mad for not worrying, and I thought he was mad for worrying about something that already happened, and it was just a car, you know, a device for getting around in. As I keep saying, neither of us is right or wrong, but if calmness and happiness are your goals, what behaviours or what belief systems might you need to reevaluate? What can you enjoy without being too attached to? Yeah. My next comparison is about pain. In the anxious person, during an accident, okay, or an emergency, so many chemicals get flooded into them that they hardly feel any pain should they be hurt in that moment, which I think is a wonderful thing. You know? And as I've said before, I've nearly died quite a few times, and I've had very high impact accidents, and I've had many, many injuries. And each time as it happened, in the last few seconds of that impact, okay, time slowed down, right? I didn't like it, but I wasn't afraid. And the pain came hours after the accident and not during it. However, anxious people often don't do exciting new things as they're afraid of death or injury, yet they still excessively worry, which as they know is often doing damage to their health. I think people know this deep down, and they're either in denial of the fact, or their little 8-year-old, their little demon, is using that fact to sabotage them. Like if they're ill, they won't be able to go to work, so they can stay home and recover. The things I've been talking about. Or in some cases, like manic depression, it may even be a sort of a form of passive suicide. Sometimes it's worth sitting back and thinking about these things. However, for the calm person, there is the realization that pain can actually quite easily be tolerated through acceptance. Okay? So the fear of pain doesn't become an excuse to not get on with life. Plus, as they're calm most of the time, their bodies tend to have excellent immune systems. Okay? Therefore, they're not scared of or likely to catch a cold or any flu that may be circulating. Therefore, it's one less thing for them to worry about. And there are countless experiments, okay, that prove people with a belief system that assumes they won't catch a cold, okay, or those who are positively placeboing themselves, saying things like, "Well, I won't catch it. I don't catch colds," okay, tend not to get it. Whereas those who do expect to catch it tend to. As I've said before, you know, placebo is very effective, and the opposition of placebo is nocebo, okay, where you expect to get something, and that's very effective too. Two very different belief systems. One that's high energy and life affirming, the other which is low energy and life limiting. Now the next step is regarding post-emergency analysis. And the anxious person often regrets how they responded because in that moment it was an unconscious response because their thinking brain had been turned off. But when it comes back online again, they use that thinking mind to beat themselves up with regret, guilt, or shame about what they think they ought to have done, which of course is a virtual reality story. Whereas the calm person simply moves to acceptance. I did the best I could do. Well done me. And even if it wasn't the best thing they could have done, it is what they did do. Only hindsight, okay, allows analysis, and everything else is just a virtual reality story, which can be ignored. Hindsight can be ignored. You did the best you could do. You don't beat yourself up. And this way of looking at life leads to a gentle form of self-esteem and the ability to feel vulnerable, yet still take action, regardless of any outcome, okay? And with a positive and optimistic inner dialogue, which, as I keep reminding you, is the definition of courage. Whereas the anxious person may remain stuck in loops of self-doubt and fear, okay? I hope this is making sense, okay? It's wise to embark upon the process of making calmness your primary goal, because then everything else can then cascade down from that emotional state. In my own life, I've created my own mental and emotional ecosystem that operates within me, okay? And it radiates out of me. I work on the biological and the chemical reactions within me and the positive intentions which I direct out through a high energy field around me. Right? And then I silently cover everything up so it looks like I just fit into life, okay? And the communities that I live within, I accept others the way they are, and if how they are is disruptive to my calmness, I try to accept that, or I put boundaries in to protect myself from them, or whatever I need to do to put my calmness at the front of my world. As I've said before, my work doesn't define me. Outside of these videos, which are mainly so I can earn a living, I rarely talk about this stuff. Most people who know me are pretty much unaware of what I do. However, I try to the best of my ability to generate a silent field of optimism and calmness and love around me, regardless of what is happening in the world to me and around me. So calmness is not just the opposite of anxiety, but it's also the antidote to anxiety. But it's not easy to develop. It doesn't just happen. Even knowing everything that I'm teaching you here is not enough. You have to reprogram yourself. You have to do the exposure therapy. You have to retrain your brain, okay? You have to recalibrate your cells. You have to change your chemistry, adjust your belief systems, and have clear intentions, okay? And one of the most powerful steps is overcoming your demons. How do we remove energetic emotional demons? Well, there are a few key methods that you can use, and I would like to suggest that you explore and install strategies for each of them. So firstly, our emotional demons seem only able to reside within low energy fields like fear, guilt, shame, and sort of victim mentalities. Therefore, raising your energy frequency above a certain level through meditation, breath work, exercise, discharging your atomic battery, venting your pain body, being more loving, more optimistic, or surrounding yourself with high energy people, seems to create an energy field that they struggle to inhabit. I've been on retreats with high energy people in high energy locations where I've been knocked off my feet by energy fields as I've walked into a room. Okay? And past trap trauma was just automatically vented out from me in huge emotional eruptions where energy was just pouring out from my mouth and my chest. And once it all stopped, I was different. In one of these experiences, I had a huge and dramatic energy venting that went on for a couple of hours, okay? And once it stopped, the source of my depression was gone. It was no longer in me. That trapped energy, that emotional demon, for want of a better word, was out. And that was 7 years ago. And since then, I've had no depression at all. It's just no longer inside me. It's no longer feeding off me. It came out. Now, I'm going to be talking about more events like this in later videos. And I hope I'm not sounding like a crazy person, because I'm pretty logical and rational. And I've waited all this way into here to start talking about these things. But I'm going to urge you to perhaps start looking into them. Or if you know about these things, perhaps start looking at them slightly differently. Now, secondly, can you focus on removing the food source of these energetic parasitic demons? Okay, as I said, they feed off of depression, drama, fear, worry, all the if-only stories from the past and all the what-if stories about the future. Some people are still angry or feel shame about something that happened 20 years ago. Can you see that your demon is dragging you back into rerunning those old events in your mind so it can feed off of your body's resulting emotions of anger, guilt, shame, or the whole unfairness of it all? So we need to let go of those stories of the past. We need to forgive others. We need to forgive ourselves, okay? And we need to change our stories. We need to trick ourselves, placebo ourselves, regardless of this new story you use. Saying to yourself you had a wonderful childhood and only rerunning good stories from your childhood in your mind is creating a far nicer ecosystem within you, as well as starving those demons. And then thirdly, okay, ERP, which I've talked about a lot, exposure and prevention therapies, okay? By repeatedly exposing yourself to that which scares you, your mind and your body become recalibrated and habituate to new karma responses. Give an example. The fear of embarrassing myself when I was young used to cause me intense anxiety and intense self-consciousness. However, in recent years, learning to accept it and to keep continuously exposing myself to events where I could embarrass myself has completely ended that old cycle, which for whatever reason was formed during my childhood. And we don't need to know why these things happened, why we got programmed that way. We just have to step out there and change them. These days, if I do something stupid or I mess up, I can lovingly laugh at myself rather than beat myself up. Which also means that I can try new things without fearing failure, which of course has expanded my life enormously. So let me bring in some tools and perspectives that I've used over the years, which have helped me enormously. And remember, one of the tenets of this whole course is about me giving you examples from my life that helped me change, okay? One of the first things that I want you to introduce you to is something that I call e-breathing, energy breath work. The fact that breathing in certain ways is extraordinarily beneficial for the body and the brain. And although I've been doing this for years, more recently a Dutch guy called Wim Hof has done a brilliant job of increasing people's awareness of its benefits on mental health. And most of his work now has been thoroughly tested through scientific studies. So there's the proof that it works is there. He's got many YouTube videos explaining how it works, and I would absolutely encourage you to watch them, even sign up for his online program. But let me just give you some of the basics, okay? Through the use of deep breathing techniques and long periods of holding your breath, 4 key life-changing elements emerge. Firstly, by breathing deeply, you are oxygenating your body, which makes it much stronger, okay? One very provable experiment is where you do as many push-ups as you can, then you breathe a certain way for a few minutes, then when you do push-ups again, you'll find that you'll be able to do many, many more than the first time. And when you bear in mind that anxiety and depression make you feel exhausted, perhaps you can now see how this might be a very important element to explore. Secondly, by holding your breath for long periods of time, you learn to become comfortable with the panicky feeling that the body begins to experience when it wants to breathe again. Most people don't know this, but the body can actually last quite a while longer without air, even when you get to that panicky sort of in-breath moment. So if you can keep your body and your mind calm, even though the body wants a breath, you are tricking and retraining your amygdala to see the situation as less scary. You're learning to observe the fear rather than be triggered by the fear. And as we know, anxiety makes you jump to shallow, fast breathing, which triggers your sympathetic nervous fear responses, okay? Whereas deep, long breaths instigate the parasympathetic rest, digest, and repair biological settings. So these are really, really powerful techniques to learn, and they're very simple, quick to adopt, yet so many people know about them but don't go and do them. And I'm saying just go do this stuff. It's easy. Thirdly, the brain responds to breath work by decreasing in activity from the busy and active gamma and beta fast frequencies down to the calmer and more creative alpha frequencies, and if you're lucky, down even into the theta frequency, where in these brainwave patterns, all the noisy mind chatter, it just can't function very well. You know, you become really creative, you become really quiet but creative. It's a great place to be. Fourthly, the immune system benefits enormously from these periods of increased oxygenation. And having a quiet mind and a calm body, it just makes you feel healthier. It's good for your body. And then finally, through the many types of breath work, those of you who can feel energy, and this is a skill that can be developed, will notice that the overall energy frequency of the body rises considerably through the breath work. And this is really conducive to the natural release of any trapped trauma within our bodies, you know, or the ridding ourselves of our emotional demons that seem to rise up within us because they seem not to like this powerful high frequency energy. Now, the first time this happens, it can be quite scary. You know, these things start coming up, the energy starts to come up, and it feels a bit like a panic attack, okay? And your body might be shaking, or the feel of energy is coming up out of your mouth or out of your chest, okay? But we are learning to accept this. We are learning to relax into the discomfort. We are learning to separate the energy release from all the stories of the mind, okay? We're trying to calmly let the emotions escape and stay away from the stories. If we need to quietly talk over the top, it's pretty simple. We just say, it's okay. Everything's fine. I surrender to this transition. It's okay. You just come on out. Everything's fine. So, you can check out Wim Hof's YouTube videos, or you can use the diaphragmatic breathing that I showed you in earlier videos. As a quick reminder of my process, you breathe in until your lungs are full, and then you slowly breathe out through slightly pursed lips, so there's a slight resistance, and you keep gently breathing out until there's absolutely nothing left in your lungs, and then you just allow your diaphragm to just pull air back into your lungs, okay? So it's really simple. You just breathe in, and then just and around you go. Okay, just keep repeating. Don't rush, and gently start to explore what happens as you keep extending the period at the end of the breath until there's absolutely nothing left in there. Yeah, or even getting to the end of your breath and then holding your breath. Okay, right, and you just sit with that discomfort. You keep your body still and your mind still. And if you get a bit panicky, you just run a soothing dialogue in your mind. It's okay. Everything's fine. And when you're ready, just let the breath come back in again. And this can be used in a number of ways, okay? I often use this as a form of pre-meditation, which means before I go into meditation, I find this very, very quickly gets my body and my mind into a really deep, calm place very, very quickly, okay? I use it in dangerous or fearful situations to quickly calm myself, okay? And I use it if I need to raise my energetic frequency very quickly to affect people around me. One last concept that's closely associated with breathwork is that the taking of cold showers or cold baths, okay, is very, very powerful. And once again, there are hundreds of YouTube videos on this topic, but let me give you the headlines. Evolutionarily speaking, the bodies of our ancestors would have daily gone through what we might call deep shocks, like being cold, getting wet, being hungry, being hot, and experiencing pain. Okay, and for them that was natural. Okay, and their bodies evolved to respond well to those conditions. However, these days we have it really easy, you know, and we have it pretty safe. Okay, and our bodies have become normalized to comfort, which, although is very nice, is not natural. It's not what we were designed for, nor is it optimal for our health. So by taking cold showers, and importantly, learning to sag your body and intentionally relaxing your body into the cold, just accepting it, does wonders for the cardiovascular system and the immune system, and retraining the body to stop being all anxious and jumpy about any danger or discomfort. I remember being on holiday with some friends, And when I left the pool, I took a shower and then came back and sat with my friends. And a friend had been watching me and she said, "How was the shower?" And I said, "Lovely." Okay. In fact, it'd been freezing cold, but I just walked into it. I didn't flinch. I didn't do any drama. I just sacked my body. I breathed slowly and I just accepted the cold. I'd just done what needed to be done with the resources that were around me. No drama. And I didn't like it, but remember, our cells respond to what you're thinking about, how you move, your tonality. So I was relaxed in my body. My tonality was, everything's fine, it's just cold water. I was placebo in my unconscious body into calmness, although I knew a shock was coming, consciously, okay? And when the shock arrived, I sagged my body even more and just accepted it. After about 15 seconds, it felt really lovely. It was refreshing. I enjoyed it. Now, you can do the same with anxiety. You can do the same with pain, fear, cold, and even heat to a certain degree. As the observer in those moments, realize that you are not the body. You have a body. The body will sort itself out if you let it and if you stay out of its way. Your job is to make sure it's not overly stressed until the actual stress happens, and even then to relax into it as fast as you can. A while later, that friend swam in the pool, and then she went over to the shower and screamed as the freezing water hit her. She thought it would be hot because, to her mind, I had behaved as if it was hot. And her brain had made that connection, that assumption, that pattern, because that's what brains do. We humans are really programmable. I keep telling you this, okay? And now she was doing this whole nervous anxiety dance routine around the shower, freaking herself out when she wasn't even under the shower. Now, normally I don't try and teach my friends these things. It's none of my business how they live their lives. But I thought as we were there for 10 days, it might be useful if I could show her that there is another way, okay? So I walked over to her, right? And she was really angry with me, which is funny because I hadn't done anything. I always relax into the cold, into fear, into anxiety, into pain, into danger. I always do that, okay? But she had a virtual reality story that because I had said the shower was lovely, it was my fault and that I tricked her. Now, because I don't take things personally, I was able to calmly and lovingly say, "Oh, you're right, I'm sorry, that was mean of me," which dissipated her emotional reaction to that event. And I said to her, "Can I teach you a cool trick?" And she said, "Yeah." And I explained about the cells in darkness, the tonality, the sag in the body, about tricking the biology, and about not doing drama, either internally or with the people around you. And with that, she just walked into the shower, sagged her body, kept this soft internal dialogue, just accepted it. And after about 15 seconds, she said, "Wow, this is really lovely, it's refreshing." She changed a whole belief system in 2 minutes. Plus it boosted her immune system and gave her a powerful cardio workout. And then she became fascinated over the following days, just watching the difference between those who just got on with it and just accepted the discomfort, and those who did a big anxiety drama, or those who even avoided taking a shower altogether. Now, more and more evidence is being published that show exposure to cold water and intermittent fasting, which are what our bodies were actually designed to handle, are powerful tools for resetting your body back into natural balance and for calming the mind and keeping anxiety and depression at bay. And I really, really would encourage you to do this as best as you can. Try it for a month or two, okay? It's a game changer. So, my challenge for you in this video is to keep asking yourself, who is responsible for my emotions? Okay? And keep reminding yourself that it's you, right? And if something within you is unconsciously stopping you from letting this happen, be that a belief, blaming other people, low self-esteem, fear, your little 8-year-old, guilt, trapped trauma, or let's just say an inner demon, okay? Let's see that as a parasitic energy within that feeds from low energy emotions like fear, drama, guilt, shame and blame. How can you starve it from its low energy fuel? Via calmness, increasing your energetic field, and through energetic breathing. How can you purposefully engage with stressful situations and then practice calming yourself down. I think one of my biggest learnings was that fear can be handled. Fear can be accepted. These days, fear never stops me from doing what I desire to do, because what I desire to achieve is more important to me these days than how my body feels. Embrace change. Embrace uncertainty. Feel vulnerable, but take action anyway, regardless of the outcome. And keep doing things in the now that will influence your future. Ask yourself, are my thoughts and actions making me avoid anxiety, or are they taking me towards who I wish to become? Decide what you want from life and keep consciously, positively and optimistically talking yourself into it. Pretend to behave now how you might expect that future you would be thinking and behaving, and then do everything, no matter how vulnerable it makes you feel, that takes your life in the direction of those intentions. This is exposure therapy in action, and your life will change. And change is good. Although those little demons, they don't like it. But I say, poor them, because their days are numbered anyway. We're moving on. It's all about a you new now, okay? New thoughts, new behaviours, and new calmness. And remember this, things like creativity, it's not something that you have, it's something that you do, okay? It's an action. Focus is not something you have, it's something you do. You focus on your intentions. Your brain is a very powerful instrument, but it's been programmed with fear, okay? It's unconsciously just running the old programs that it has been programmed by your little demons. Conscious, positive and optimistic self-talk with clear intentions, action in the now and repetition update these old programs which scare out these demons. They won't like it, you won't like it, it'll feel uncomfortable, but you sit back, you relax into it and you just let it happen. As ever, thank you all for your support, and let's make calmness a big new intention in our lives. Talk to you soon.